All right, what's up, everyone? This is Wild Phil with Wild Philosophy. Let's get wild. Or today, let's just get mild. Today's a serious topic. As the title says, what is it like to live with a disability, specifically epilepsy? Epilepsy. Yeah. See, one thing I want to mention real quick is what, for some of you listeners who don't know what this channel is about, who the hell I am, what are you going to get out of this video that you don't get out of other videos? So hang tight and let me explain, okay? First of all, there's a shit ton of YouTubers out there who are just looking up general definitions and statistics from ChatGPT, from Wikipedia, from scientific articles, and you're 3 sentences in and you're like, what the hell does this scientific mumbo jumbo mean? What does it mean? So you're not going to get this here. I'm going to tell you my personal experience. And the other thing is there's a bunch of YouTube channels that, everybody needs to share their story, their personal, their situation with their epilepsy, and that's a good thing. But, so what am I going to give you? What am I going to give you? I'll tell you what I'll give you. Number one, I've had epilepsy for about 20 years right now. I haven't had a seizure in about 8. And so I'm going to give you my personal, blunt knowledge and wisdom of what I've retained from everything. First off, this channel, what the hell is Wild Philosophy, right? Well, I'm a Chicago stand-up comedian. I'm a podcaster. And most of all, the point is I'm an artist / philosopher. What I mean by that is people like us who are musicians, who are comedians, we see the world in a different way. We notice things that other people don't notice. And that's basically what I'm going to share with you. And so what I'm going to say is, if you got a loved one who has epilepsy, or even if you care about me, hang tight and listen. This is going to be a long one, but it's going to be an interesting one, I promise you. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a generic, dumbed down, personal wisdom definition of what exactly epilepsy is, and then I'm going to give you my personal history. So let's start off. First of all, a lot of people who know me, they're not even aware that I have a disability. They're just like, wait a minute, Wild Phil? Wait a minute, he's a stand-up comedian, a podcaster, a musician, a stepdad, a husband, a welder of 15 years, and he's got a disability? Yeah, I do. And it's an unbelievable struggle that nobody knows about. And to be honest, a lot of people, it's kind of awkward to ask, like, what are you going through? How hard is it? Oftentimes a lot of people just think I'm thick-skinned because I've also had a lot of trauma in my life, but that's because I keep on running, baby. It's an everyday struggle, and that's what I'm going to go through today. That's what you're going to hear today. So first off, let's start off with generically, what is epilepsy? Epilepsy is a neurological disease that affects the brain, and it's basically defined by abnormal electric activity in your brain, different parts of the brain, okay? That's what epilepsy is. So does that mean if you had a seizure, you're epileptic? Not necessarily. It's a little bit more complex than that, and that's what I'm going to get into. Because the truth is, not even the professionals, not even the doctors really know what epilepsy is, but they won't admit it to you, and that's what I'm going to get into the further I go in. Basically, the way to put it is, epilepsy is like the doctors have their toes in a body of water that is an ocean and 20,000 leagues under the sea that you can't reach with a submarine with 5 rich people, if you know what I'm saying. It really is. It's as much of a mystery as ALS is. And I'm going to go on a little rant here, but this is the blunt, centrist truth that, what I've noticed from being an immigrant in America is that if I had to define America in one word, it would be pride. And what I mean by that is this country is undoubtedly the best, most successful country to live in. We are the Romans of our age. This is the best country to be in. I love this country. And if you're doubting that, well, I have all these people that are like, oh, it's not. No, this place is better. Well, then move there. And I'm not telling you to get out of here because I hate you. I'm telling you because I want you to have a good life. My mom moved here. My dad moved here with like less than $100 in their pockets for a reason, and they stayed here for that reason. I just want you to have a good life. So this undoubtedly is the best country in the world. So what does that have to do with epilepsy? because of that pride, we have this sort of like preconceived notion that everything can be done in this country, right? But we still don't have a cure for cancer. We still don't know what the hell ALS is, and we still cannot cure epilepsy. It's an ongoing, lifelong condition, but it is manageable through many different ways. Surgery, mine is manageable through pills. But so let's get back to the definition, right? So it's a neurological disease that is lifelong because of abnormal electrical activity in the different parts of the brain. First thing I want to tell you is there's different types of epilepsy. Now, once again, I'm going by my experience, so I don't have all the info, but I know that I have frontal lobe epilepsy, there's temporal lobe epilepsy, there's all different parts of the brain epilepsy, right? And so the other thing that I want to go over is there's different triggers for different people, okay? Obviously, a lot of comedians and a lot just general population jokes about how strobe lights affect epileptics. They don't affect all. That's just one trigger. There's different triggers. My personal trigger is sleep deprivation. That's what triggered my epilepsy. I'll get into that after this, what I mean by triggered, okay? Some people, it's heat, abnormal amounts of heat, like they can't be in the sun or they can't be in a sauna. Some people, it's generalized anxiety and panic, where if they just get stressed out, they go into a seizure. Everybody has different triggers, right? And what I also mean by different types of epilepsy is not just where it's allocated and not just the triggers, but also how you get affected by it. And what I'm going to go into is most epileptics, number one, they don't feel when they're having a seizure. It's kind of like, you know, you feel that you get a little bit of an aura. You start going into the seizure, and then you kind of like black out. It's like time traveling. You know, you wake up maybe with your tongue bit, maybe with your shoulder broken, and you can have a seizure at any time of the day. That's why a lot of epileptics, you know, you can't have a driver's license. You got to rely on Uber your whole life. That's part of the struggle. My particular frontal lobe epilepsy, I only get it in my sleep. I've never had a seizure during the daytime, and sleep deprivation is my trigger. Or if I miss a dose. But I've been on it for so long, you know, obviously I haven't had a seizure in 7 years, so it's very controlled, and I'm very happy about that. But there's side effects with the pill, which I'll get into. But so that's the different types of epilepsy, you know, the different parts of your brain, the different triggers, and how it affects you. You know, like I get it only in my sleep. So let's talk about the triggers first. I want to go on a very informative rant about CBD, okay? Because nobody talks about this. Everybody from the outside, they're like, CBD is fucking great for everything. The dad's diet weed. It's bullshit. I'm going to tell you right now, I think it's bullshit. Everybody's epilepsy is different, but let me explain to you exactly what CBD is. The way I would compare CBD is the way corporations tried to sort of cater to like LGBTQ when all they're trying to do is shuffle in fucking money for themselves. That's kind of what CBD did for epileptics. They kind of like, what's CBD for? Well, it's amazing for epilepsy. And all these people, you know, their fucking sales went up, right? Let me explain what CBD does. Obviously, it's anti-inflammatory. It calms the body down. Now, when I say there's different forms of epilepsy, let's talk about that for a little bit, okay? From mild to severe. When there's mild epilepsy, sometimes you don't even have a seizure. Sometimes you just get an aura and you're catatonic and there's stuff going on in your brain and then you can't function. Every time I personally had a seizure, I couldn't function for that. I couldn't hold a conversation. I was catatonic. I looked like when you see in like a creepy horror movie, those old people that are just sitting in a chair with a blank stare. You know, a mosquito could land on my nose and bite it, and I just wouldn't react because it's literally like putting your brain in a microwave. That's how bad seizures are. And so, basically, what I'm seeing is that. So there's people with the aura, and the people are wondering like, what is an aura? An aura is, it's hard to explain. It's sort of, when I feel it, my description of it would be one of my favorite movies that kind of reminds me of like my symptoms and side effects of epilepsy is Donnie Darko, where things are just sort of like you kind of hear like a drony noise. Things are a little bit out of it. You can't really tell if you're in a dream or in your reality. And it's almost like you're on a drug. And then you go into, and then people who have a little bit more severe epilepsy start having seizures, right? So it goes from like the people who are just have auras to the people who start having seizures. And then the next severity would be, I guess I would put myself in there, nocturnal epilepsy, where I have seizures, but I only have them during the night. Now, one little tangent that I'm going to go off on, I have a very rare condition. And the reason why I say that is, remember how I said most epileptics, they have it anytime during the day and they can, they can't have a driver's license. I only get it in my sleep, right? Which puts me in a very unique position when it comes to filing for disability. I'm going to go over that. I'm going to go over that struggle a little bit later on when I go into detail of my personal experience. But, I would only, the other thing that's very odd, so odd that when when I started having my seizures, my mom was breaking down crying, seeing how I'm suffering, that I actually got to have a study done in Cleveland Clinic for free because I was like a small percentage. And what was unique about my condition, not only that I only get it in my sleep, not only that it happens regularly and in my sleep, but I would pass out from the pain. So let me give you so remember how I said most epileptics, they just sort of like they get that aura, then they start shaking, and then they black out, right? What would happen to me, I would pass out from the pain. And I'll go into detail when I go into my personal experience, but So what would happen is I would feel like I'm getting a Charlie horse, like dehydrated cramp, but in every muscle in my body. I mean, I don't know how to emphasize how it was so painful. This is a little dark, but I'm a dark humor person. In 8th grade, I did a biography book report on Jeffrey Dahmer. Yeah, you should have seen the looks on all the people in the room when I was like, yeah, actually, he's not fat shaming, but he prefers muscular people because biceps are like the filet mignon of humans. And it's not about how you cook it. It's about how you season it. It was great. Anyways, but in the Jeffrey Dahmer biography, it described that when he was young, one time he tortured a hamster to where he held this hamster in his hands and slowly squeezed the air out of him. I'm sorry I'm going into this vulgar shit, but that's how I felt. Like the hand of God I'm just curling inward into a fetal position. Every muscle in my body is cramping. My facial muscles, my jaw is going sideways. It sort of reminds me too, if you ever seen the movie Suspiria, the newer one with it was on Netflix. It's like within the 2000s. And it's a movie about these witches that possess these ballet dancers and they're like contorting their bodies. That's how I felt. And eventually I would start screaming and pass out from the pain. So there's that severity. Now, I'm sort of like in the middle. The most severe epileptics have it all the time. There are people there. I'm sure you've seen those videos where they show children having seizures every 5 minutes. They're just having seizures every 5 minutes, all throughout the day, 24/7. And these are the kind of people who they usually suggest surgery to remove that part of their brain where that electrical activity exists. And you can't, that's why some people even argue for euthanasia, because what quality of life is that? Why am I getting into the severity of epileptics? Because I'm ranting about CBD. Now I'm going to rant about CBD. Because people talked about the CBD. Oh, it's an anti-inflammatory. And look at what it's doing for epileptics, right? Here's this child who has 40 seizures a day, every hour, every half hour. And CBD helps them, right? It's bullshit. Why is it bullshit? Because most of the time, these epileptics are either, there kind of is a mysterious trigger because doctors don't know about it, or stress is their trigger. And so giving them something like CBD, calming the body down, it'll either lessen the seizures or it'll lessen the severity. There is no cure. So when I say CBD is bullshit, the reason why I say this is because CBD is just sort of like, I don't know why it got associated with epilepsy. Because, for example, if you have a child who has, or anybody who has those severe seizures, what if chamomile tea calms them down? I guarantee you that'll lower their severity of seizures. What if soft music calms them down? That'll lower their... So CBD is like just another remedy on top of all these remedies. Like I said, these, the LGBTQ people who are like opening their fucking eyes, like all these corporations are trying to make us buy their product by bullshitting us. That's kind of what CBD did to the epileptic world. Done with the rant. Let's keep going. So I guess where I'm going to go is my personal history with epilepsy. What happened to me? What exactly happened to me? And I want to tell you in detail how I felt, how it feels, what happened. So I have a previous video that I urge you to watch. I don't really want to go into detail with this because it's a little bit traumatic, and I mention it almost every podcast because people can't believe. But long story short, I got Rodney King'd by cops the first time I had a seizure. I was 16 years old, and I'll try and summarize it now. I was 16 years old. I was going to a concert. I drank a shit ton of... Oh, hold on. Sorry. Here's a very interesting thing that I need to share to help some of you out with epileptic loved ones, or some of you that don't know this. This was so interesting to me. One of the most frequently... So let's go over the two most frequently asked questions. Number one, if you have a seizure, do you have epilepsy? Not true. Why? Because you can do things that cause you to have a seizure, such as a concussion in a car accident, or my friend, side funny story, really fucking ridiculous. My buddy of mine, the guitarist in my old band, he got accepted into the electricians union in Chicagoland's area, and to celebrate, because that's a big deal. It's like probably the most high-paying union in Chicago. Everybody rants about become a union electrician, And so he was in his 20s. He's a metalhead. So he's like, we're fucking raging, And he got drunk out of his mind. And then when he blacked out, I think somebody passed him a blunt and he smoked weed. So then when he woke up, he's like, oh shit, I got to take a drug test today. And I'm not going to pass it. And I'm in this union. So what he did was he drank 9 gallons of water, got water poisoning, and had a seizure. I didn't know water poisoning is an ailment that could exist in 2023. It sounds like something you'd die in an Oregon Trail from. Anyways, that's what happened to him. But he doesn't have epilepsy. But he caused himself to have a seizure. So... And he's not epileptic. So there's that frequently asked question. Here's the other thing. Here's the biggest fact that I just think this was groundbreaking for me, okay? There's the huge question of, is epilepsy genetic or not? And the best way I could explain it from my wisdom that I've gathered is that it is genetic, but because you have it in your genes does not mean that you will have epilepsy. And what that means is you need a trigger. So, for example, anybody listening right now, you could have epilepsy in your genes, but you just haven't had anything that's triggered the disease. So, quick little story, what triggered my epilepsy was, look at it. I went to a concert, so I was sleep deprived. I was out till 3 a.m. Then I drank a gallon of vodka, so I was dehydrated. And because I was dehydrated, it was also in the summer. So all of this entailed, it was hot as hell. I was basically in the most uncomfortable position I could. And that's from that moment, I started regularly having seizures. And I'll go into that when I get deep into my personal experience. Here's what's interesting. And I'm going to get into this in detail, but I had it since I was 16, right? Around the time I hit 25, nobody else in my family had epilepsy. I was about 25, 27. My brother, who's 4 years younger than me, so he would have been, 23 or 20 or something. He gets in a car accident and the airbag doesn't go off. That triggered his epilepsy, and he has the exact same condition as me. Nocturnal frontal lobe epilepsy, only gets it in his sleep, and his triggers are sleep deprivation or stress, right? Which goes hand in hand, right? Because you won't sleep if you got stress. For example, this is a really another dumb story. I sometimes am too overconfident. So one day I used to mountain bike every other day for 20 miles. And one day I'm like, well, today's the day to mountain bike, but at the same time it's 100 degrees outside. Fuck it, I'm going. I can do this. And I went to bike, and 20 minutes in, I thought I was going to have a heat stroke. I started getting shaky. I couldn't even control my handlebars because I thought I was going into a seizure. And I'm like, I've never had this during the daytime. I better go somewhere. So there I am in cutoff jeans with no shirt on, like I'm at a fucking Guns N' Roses concert in the 90s. And I'm just sweating balls in a nursing home lobby. And they're like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I think I might be going into a seizure because I did something stupid. I was overconfident. So the point I'm getting at is there's a trigger. You need a trigger. So you might be like, for example, not an athletic person where you didn't play sports. You never had a head injury. You never had a concussion. And you may have it in your genes, but you never awoke that demon in your genes is how I explain it. So that's why it's a little bit muddled when people say, oh, is epilepsy genetic? It is. But there's just some people who don't get it, who have it in their genes. And that's why I guess I would say there's no reason to be scared. I'm a half glass full kind of guy, and so I've been able to manage it. And now we're going to go into my detailed personal history. Now, before we go, okay, last thing. Before we go into it, I want to say what does it mean I'm a half glass full kind of guy? I want to say this before I go into my personal history, okay? I had some of the worst things happen to me in my life outside of epilepsy. Severe trauma, kidnapped, beat up by both parents, beat up by bullies. I mean, deaths in the family. You guys know if you listen to my podcast, right? Other than epilepsy, it's a whole lot to deal with. But the whole time, I'm a half glass full kind of guy. So what do you do? What I suggest if you have any disability? Number one is acceptance. And number two is waking up every morning feeling, man, at least I'm not some malnutrition kid in a third world country that's sipping out of a fucking puddle out of acid rain water. You know? Be happy. You got a good life. And accept what you have. The quicker you accept it, see, people, I just know I'm not gonna mention who it is, but I have a friend who has a severe disability, and this person, I see them on Facebook. I see them talking to me. Every single thing, they are obsessed with going down a fucking doom scrolling rabbit hole of, oh, maybe they found the cure. Oh, maybe there's a remedy. Oh, maybe there's a surgery. Oh, there's this thing in Mexico I heard about. And they're just putting all this energy into hoping that they won't have the ailment they have, when instead you could accept what you have and focus on how can I enjoy life with what I have. Because the first thing you should accept is you may never be alive for the cure of your disability, and they may never find a way to help you out. And that's why focus on the good shit. Whatever it is. Whether you like traveling or getting your dick sucked, I don't know. I'm not going to get into it. But you have to keep your fucking head up, because what do you want? 20 more years of doom scrolling and hoping that there's some shit, hoping that Elon Musk makes something for you? Or 20 years of I'm going to have a good time, and whatever comes along on its way, well, I'll enjoy it. If not, I'm having a good time anyways. All right, now let's get into my personal history. So, like I said, when I was 16 years old, I went to this concert, started having my first seizure. Here's exactly how it felt, because I want people to, I guess, not even what I have is unique to me. I've never talked to other epileptics, so I'm going to explain what happened to me. What happened to me and what happened every day from that moment on is, here's how it would start. It was very random, and that's what was devastating at first because, to be perfectly honest, I got put on trileptal, oxcarbazepine. I think it's like, it was 300 milligrams in the morning, 300 milligrams at night. So I have like 2 pills in the morning, 2 pills at night. My brother has the same condition, same dosage. He just has like a fatter pill. So it's like my pills look like, I can't even explain, like 2 Tic Tacs. His pills look like a peanut butter M&M, same dosage and same times. But so what would happen to what was so devastating is it took my brain 2 to 3 years for it to get used to this foreign chemical that manages epilepsy. So for 2 or 3 years, I was having seizures maybe 3 times a month, and I'm telling you, let's get started. So I had my first seizure, 16. I go to a concert, get dehydrated, wake up seizing, and like I said, I woke up cramping every body, and then I woke up in the hospital with my teeth cracked in half, blood coming from my chest from glass, my eyebrow was cut open like a piece of bologna, I got like 14 stitches, and most of all, what was the weirdest was my wrists. I can't show it right now. Maybe you can, I don't know if you can see it on camera, especially this wrist. You can see how right here, I have like this olive tan colored skin, but right here at the edge, it's a little bit darker. You could see like there's a scar. I got handcuffed by cops while having a seizure, and they beat the shit out of me because I'm into satanic black metal. They saw these bloody baby doll heads and upside down crucifixes. They're like, he's having an overdose, which is completely not protocol. They didn't do their job right. I should have waited for the ambulance. I'm not going to get into it. I have another video that says the time I got beat up by cops while having a seizure. Check it out. So that was my first seizure. And every time from that moment, it was random when it happened. 3 times a month, 4 times a month. And that's what was so devastating is it was like, obviously I quit alcohol altogether. I didn't, from about 16 years old to about 23, I didn't drink a drop of alcohol ever again. I tried my best not to be sleep deprived. And here's how it was. Like I said, the seizures would be random. They would happen randomly, but if I was sleep deprived, it was a sure shot I was going to have a seizure. And so here's exactly what it feels like. Every single time I would wake up, have a little bit, and here's the other thing another precursor, because I'm sorry, guys, deal with me, all right? I know the comments, people tell me I have a little bit of an ADD way of doing these videos. Well, thank you very much, my professional PhD commentators, for diagnosing me. But I want to give you as much detail. So one thing I wanted to mention is that I grew up with a lot of trauma. Kidnapped, beat up by my parents, all these fucking fucked up things. The biggest thing was I didn't conquer this till 3 years ago when I got EMDR, scientifically backed hypnosis. Every morning I would wake up like, if I ever got spontaneously woken up, it wasn't like every night where I would wake up like this, but if something woke me up, I would wake up like that. Kind of like when they unplug Neo in the Matrix and he can't breathe, he has a panic attack. That's what would happen to me. And the reason why is because when I was young, my dad beat the shit out of my mom at all periods of the night. Plates getting like her head getting split open. So I already had anxiety getting woken up in the middle of the night. Now imagine the fucking black cloud over me, because now I have sleep epilepsy. So if I wake up, is this my trauma or am I going into a seizure? It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. So let's get into the personal thing. I told you this 16-year-old thing, and ever since then, 3 times a month, here's how it feels like when you go into a seizure. My seizures. I would wake up in the morning, and I would feel a weird tingling, almost like a cramp, or like, when when your leg falls asleep and you get the flies, like it feels like ants crawling all over your leg. I would get that on my left butt cheek and sometimes it would just feel like it's asleep. Sometimes it would feel like, I don't know, man. I grew up with some weird friends. So I had sometimes dudes would my friends would violently grab my ass when we're drunk. That's what it felt like. It felt somebody grabbed my left butt cheek, and that's when I knew that I'm going into a seizure. So I would just scream so that somebody would get signaled to sort of put me on my side so that I don't choke on my tongue or bite my tongue. So I would start getting that cramp. Then I would start slowly shaking, and that's when, in about 15 seconds, I would go into the most violent, cramps all over my body, everywhere. Like I said, it's like that movie Suspiria. I would just my whole body contorting, my jaw, and felt like my jaw was unhinging itself. And then I would pass out from the pain. And then the next day, to sometime, definitely the full day the next day, to half day the day after, I couldn't function. I could not function. It was like I couldn't have a conversation with anybody. My lips were trembling. I had severe anxiety. I was catatonic. I didn't even want to do anything. If somebody turned the TV on, I couldn't pay attention. It's literally that blank stare that people with schizophrenia or dementia have. That's what happens after you have a seizure. Now imagine what the fuck that's like, having to have this disability but still having to work, where you have to go in that state to work the next day. I'm going to get into that later about the struggles, but so let's talk about my personal history. So 16 first seizure, about 3 seizures every month, and I had that till I was 18, 19, and the medicine was, there's just so many struggles. The worst fucking thing that ever happened to me, I think I talked about this in other podcasts, but the worst thing that happened is I had a very fucking cunt of a mom, because immediately I was the fucking slave. I was the one who got whipped, and my brother got spoiled. That's how it was. I resembled my dad. I resembled her abusive father. So I got everything. And as far as the blunt, if she's angry, she's taking it out on me. So what happened is she would tell me that I'm faking it. In her mind, it was why don't you just run it off? Why don't you just exercise more and the epilepsy will go away? She's so fucking stupid. That's the kind of shit she'd do. And 4 or 5 years, you know what it is so it took me about 2-3 years to get used to this medication. And then 4 or 5 years later, she's like, oh, you know what? It looks like you're not having seizures. Maybe we should take you off of it. And I'm like, no, we can't. She's like, I'm paying for this. This is charging my insurance. And here's the thing. Here's how selfish she was. I didn't find this out until I got my own insurance and I realized what she was doing. She was so selfish. My pills monthly were somewhere around $300 to $400. She was so selfish. She didn't want to buy me health insurance. She didn't want to provide me with health insurance. So she would buy my pills $300 to $400 for all these 2 years. And then suddenly the pills are controlling me. So then she'd say, you're faking it. You're doing this for attention. We would literally go, I got an MRI done. Like I said, after that first time that it happened, my mom was so devastated after seeing what happened to me, and obviously the cops breaking my teeth and splitting my head open, it didn't help to her trauma. So she flew me out to Cleveland. We went to Cleveland Clinic. We did a whole week sleep study. And they're like, look at the MRI. This is abnormal electrical activity. He's not, look at the sleep study, the EEG. He has epilepsy. He has sleep epilepsy. This is something he's going to have for life. And as time went on, she's like, well, what if you just take half the pills? I'm like, well, no, mom. No, mom, that's not how epilepsy works. And then I would just wake up and I have pills missing. She would take my fucking pills away. And then I ended up having seizures again. That's why in my personal experience, like, you have to, like, I just have to say, imagine how fucking strong I am to have to deal with an absolute moron of a fucking human to explain to them your child has epilepsy, and you're acting like, we went to the doctor because you have to get MRIs. I usually like every 2 years to get your prescription refilled, and 2-3 years later, she's like, he's that's not real. They're like, no, it is. It's on the MRI. He still has it. It's a lifelong thing. She's like, no. You don't understand how good he is. He's doing some black magic shit. It was so fucking aggravating to be with this fucking person. Not to mention the side effects of these pills. Not to mention the side effects. So what happened is from like 16 to about 20, I was on these pills and I was still having seizures like 3 every month. But then finally when I reached around 19 or 20 is when it started to be controlled. And that's when she started taking my fucking pills away. And that's when I started having the seizures again. So I went like 2 years seizure free, started having them again. So finally she gets me insurance. I get put on the pills again, and I'm taking them regularly. Now here's the thing that I want to mention to people that don't understand this. What do I mean by struggle? Here's what I mean by struggle. Okay. Just talking about the side effects. The side effects of the pills that I take, people do not I've had so many stupid fucking like athletic meatheads tell me, oh man, I seen how you eat. That's why you're a fat fuck. If you look up side effects of medicine, epilepsy pills cause the highest weight gain. And I'm going to get into this. I'm going to tell you at the end what happened to me that's fucking crazy. It causes the most weight gain. It's impossible to lose. And then when I tell you people, like, I take orders like a soldier. I used to go to ROTC. I actually wanted to be a Marine. So I don't like fuck things. When I have a goal, I don't fuck around. I go gung-ho. I'm the kind of person who I go from, this hasn't happened to me, but if I smoke 2 packs a day, I could quit cold turkey the next day because that's how much I'm in. So I've done keto. I've done fasting. I actually got diagnosed with anorexia because I wasn't fasting. I was just starving myself. I did everything I could to try and lose weight. You cannot lose the weight. So that's the one side effect. Next side effect, here's what sucks. The particular pill that I'm on, which is oxcarbazepine trileptal, I've never seen this written anywhere, but I know this 100% from my experience. The side effect, so oxcarbazepine, because it's frontal lobe epilepsy, different lobe epilepsy will have different treatments, different medications, different surgeries. My particular epilepsy, oxcarbazepine and trileptal seem to work and control my seizures. The only other thing trileptal is prescribed for is bipolar. So imagine if you got a pill, it's doing the work for the epilepsy, but what is it doing? What is a bipolar pill doing for a person who doesn't have bipolar? I ended up having very bipolar mood swing tendencies because of the side effects. It's something that I've now, it's 20 years later, so I've leveled myself out through meditation, through hypnosis, and just through activity, through exercise. But it took a really long time, and I didn't know what was happening to me. It was so, just imagine, okay? Imagine you're having all these, imagine if I was in the most privileged rich house. I'm some fucking rich kid in, Naperville. It's like a rich neighbor. It's all, or Highland Park. It's all mansions. It's where Michael Jordan and Billy Corgan live. Imagine if I'm in the most privileged life where I don't have to work and I don't have trauma. Even then it's hard because you don't know what's like. Why do I have this random panic? Why do I have this random anxiety? Why am I randomly having seizures? It's so hard. But on top of that, I had all this trauma. I have an unsupportive family. And you know what was the most fucked thing about my mom? Like I said, I started at 16. At 20, I started going on the pills again and getting it controlled. I hit like 25. My brother gets in that accident, has the same condition as me. Suddenly, I'm so sorry. I guess it is real because now my brother has it. That's the kind of fucked up shit my mom did. But let's keep going on with my history. So I kept having all these seizures, and what this meant, what is the struggle of my seizures? Number one, obviously the anxiety, the bipolarness, right? Number two, the weight gain. It sucked. I was like, even like I will do athletic, like when I did jujitsu, I would beat people who are more athletic than me, who are more chiseled than me. They look like fucking John Cena. Why? Because I have the strength, but I have the additional fat that is, you can't lose. You can't lose because of these pills. How do I know this? That's what I'm going to get into. That's interesting. So like I said, 16 first seizure. Took me about till 20 to get it a little bit controlled. Mom starts taking my pills away. So then they come back. Then I start taking them again. It wasn't it was about 3-4 months where my mom was like, holy fuck, they're coming back threefold. So I had to go back on the pills. Quick thing I wanted to mention about one of the side effects of my pills are lowered libido. I will say I don't give a fuck if my dick is dead, but that's why I'm being honest. It did not affect me at all. For some reason, that side effect did not affect me at all. But I did notice that when my pills were lowered, I was way hornier. So I don't know what that says. Maybe like my testosterone was like sort of like calibrating and, trying to, get used to this medicine in my brain. I don't know. But so I hit 20. So I start having seizures again. She puts me on the pills again. My brother gets the same condition. Here's what happens next. So around this time, I'm like 26, 27. And I finally saved up enough money because I was in a fucked situation. I was I was 15 years old, full-time job. And I saved up all this money, but because of the stock market crashing, from me graduating college till later, I couldn't find any job. So I was saving up any money that I could with these little, fucking grocery store, being an usher at a music venue, just like these kind of high schooler jobs, And around the time 26, 27, I move out to my own place, right? I got a roommate that was a severe alcoholic. Now, this is why this is wild philosophy, because this is about being wild. My roommate was a severe alcoholic, and you know how alcoholics have certain things that they do? Some alcoholics, when they get obliterated, they start picking fights. Some, they say a lot of white girl drunk, some chicks when they get drunk, they want to make out with everybody, whatever. Don't ask me why. My particular friend, my roommate, and the thing is, I didn't notice this until I moved in with him. And because it didn't really affect me, I kind of just like didn't care. What he did when he got drunk is he would get naked and sometimes try to make out with you. Luckily, I wasn't around there. He did it to me like twice, but then he would black out and pass out naked. I know, it's fucking hilarious because at the time I was in a band, so I'm not being cocky, but I would have like a new girlfriend every 3 weeks, going out on dates online. So I'd have to bring a girl. Listen, this is wild philosophy. We're talking about epilepsy, but there's got to be a little bit of comedy. You know what I'm saying? So I'd bring girls home from online dating, and they're just like, why is there a naked dude passed out on your floor? Like, is this some Jeffrey Dahmer shit? I'm like, no. So I had to tell the story. So that was the struggle of having new girlfriends every 3 weeks. I had to re-explain, I'm not an abductor. My roommate gets drunk and naked. Anyways, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because one of the things that would happen to me before it was the first state. So remember how I said my butt cheek gets cramped, then my whole body goes into a cramp. I start like all the air out of my lungs empties from the pain that I'm feeling. And then that's when I would go, I made this really weird sound. It was like it sounded like a gorilla screaming in the Amazon. And that would actually signal, my brother before he started having seizures, or my mom, that I'm having a seizure, because they would hear that severe scream like a fucking grizzly bear yelling in the woods. And so, because I was having this alcoholic as a roommate, here's what happened. Here's what's interesting. Remember how I said it affects weight, right? So I move in on my own at like 26 with this roommate. And I start realizing that, I'm not having any seizures because these pills are controlling it. The pills are doing the job. But I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe my brain just adjusted and I don't need to take medicine. And because I was living with this alcoholic for 2-3 years, who isn't conscious to tell me whether I'm having a seizure, I wasn't with my mom or my brother who would help me while I'm having a seizure. I was under the impression that I wasn't having seizures at all, when the entire time, the entire 3 years, it was the same thing. The only thing that changed was because the pills helped my condition. I wasn't as much having that severe cramped pain. So, suddenly I went from I started having the seizures that most epileptics have, where they just black out. So I couldn't tell that I was having seizures. Certain days I'd go to work and I'm just I'm feeling extra foggy today. It's almost like I had a seizure. Well, I had one, but I didn't know that I did, because this guy would be drunk and he wouldn't hear me. Why am I mentioning this? Remember how I said the weight gain? Bro. So at 25, when I moved in with this guy, I was 230 pounds. I stopped taking those pills for 3 years. I went down to 180 and I didn't change a thing. I didn't work out. I still ate like shit and I went down to 180. I have a picture of myself where I'm at a family party and I'm kind of we all got, you're at a Polish Christmas, you're all drinking wine and dancing to gypsy, polka music. And I'm leaning on a couch with my hands behind my head. And dude, I looked at my hands and I looked like a malnutritioned, African child from a third world country. I was that skinny because of the pills. And then I had to move out of that condo. I'm not going to get into that story, but what happened is the building got infested with bed bugs. My mom blamed it on me because I'm the scapegoat, and she threw me out of the condo. I paid $30,000 and I had to wait about 5 years for her to give me my money back because I was paying a mortgage. I was paying her to own the property, and then she just kicks me out when I'm the owner of this property. So it was a horrible moment in my life. It's one of the worst moments it's probably the second worst moment period in my life. But let's stick to the epilepsy, right? So I had to move back with my mom after I lived with this drunk and wasn't taking pills. Now I'm living with my mom, and my mom's double devastated because she realized I'm having seizures every single day. So one advice that I would give to anybody out there, like I said about the acceptance piece, listen, accept that you have epilepsy. Expect whatever the fuck you have, cerebral palsy, Crohn's, POTS. You have it. Manage it. Act like it's never going away, because unfortunately it probably isn't. And so that's what I should have done. So and the thing is, going on and off these pills back and forth was just making my mental state 30 times worse. In between that time, I had a suicide attempt. It was the first time. I was one of those people that I said, no, I ain't going to have no attempts, bro. I succeed at shit, especially something as stupid as suicide. So that's the kind of, so it was serious and it was fucking me up. So finally, I moved back with my mom at 27 and I started taking the pills regularly, and they were controlled from that moment on. And since then, there's still the trauma. And like I said, I got put on all these, in other videos I mentioned, I had all this childhood trauma. I had deaths in the family. I had 5 deaths in my family in 2019. So I had to get medicated. And finally, I'm here today. I haven't had a seizure in 10 years. I manage the side effects. I meditate, I exercise. It's not really that bad. Obviously, like, I still have weight gain that I can't shed off ever. But I'm like, it's kind of the jiu-jitsu mentality. I got in an argument with my friend about what's more badass, wrestling or jiu-jitsu. And he's like, wrestlers are way more fit because they lift. And the funny thing is, what I didn't realize is, to him, badass was image. He's materialistic. To him, badass was who looks more chiseled. To me, I'm like, dude, I don't care that I have a dad minotaur body where my legs are jacked, but then I have this dog, like this pot belly hanging over my genitals. If I could kick your ass, I'm more badass. If anything, it's more badass that I'm basically like a Beverly Hills Ninja, that I'm a Chris Farley bod, but I can kick your ass. So that's the wrapped up story about my epilepsy. So now, and I have all my issues under control. I'm on half of the lowest dose of Zoloft, and it helps out a lot. And I regularly, I eat well, I exercise, and life could not be better. I've never been happier in my life. But that's this history of my epilepsy, as far as epilepsy goes. So, throughout from 16 to 36, I've been to the hospital maybe like 3-4 times from seizures because they were that violent. That was with my family. But, some people may wonder, do you have to go every time? Obviously, no. If I had seizures 3 times a month, you're just going to go bankrupt from going to the ER. Honestly, if people have epilepsy, you kind of just get used to what you have to do. You turn them on the side to not choke on your tongue. You make sure they don't fall off the bed. My brother fell off the bed one time from turning him on his side, and it fucked up his shoulder for life. His shoulder was never the same, and he had to get surgery for it. So these are some of the that's already enough struggle. But now I'm going to go into detail about the struggles, okay? Let's start off with friends. I'm going to go in order of importance of the struggles, okay? Let's start off with friends. It was a struggle having epilepsy because having friends, I was never good at making friends. I had a lot. I had so much trauma that somebody who doesn't have epilepsy would have emotional issues. But now I'm also on a pill that my brain is getting used to over a period of on and off 10 years. So it's really hard to be around people that have zero fucking idea what epilepsy is and what mood you're going to be in. That's why that quote is awesome about be kind, because you don't know what somebody might be going through. And in my case, I was going through something different every single day for decades. And I think that's why I honestly have like 2 very close friends, possibly one new one in the comedy scene, because they have similar issues as me. They have things that other people would not understand. And so that's one part, the mood swings. That's one part that ties into having problems with friends. The other thing that ties into having friends is I couldn't drink alcohol. That was a really tough thing. Going from party animal Wild Phil in high school to you can't drink ever. I mean, what people think like, it's whatever, you just don't drink. Sure, I don't have a problem with that now. And now I actually regularly drink because I've been told by my neurologist, specifically red wine, for some reason, wines don't affect my particular epilepsy the way that other things like beer or alcohols do. So I drink wine once in a while. Not to mention, wine is also healthy compared to, wine is probably the only alcohol that is beneficial to your health. But being somebody from 16 years old to 25, you're on a bunch of ignorant fucking teenagers, basically. And especially for millennials, I mean, millennials act like they're teenagers in their fucking 40s. So dressing like Mac DeMarco and still smoking weed. So being around that group of people, you cannot imagine the cloud of resentment that I had from people where at first they would joke around and be like, "Oh yeah, man, I guess you're the designated driver. Yeah, man, we want you to hang out with us." And then I would hang out with them, and being the sober friend, I was like, "Dude, you kind of have like a little bit of a problem." And so being around other alcoholics, they fucking hated me because they were like, I feel like you're judging me the whole time. And I'm like, well, it's because you have a fucking problem and I care about you. So those friend groups fell apart. People who drank didn't want me around because they felt like they're being judged, or they felt like I'm on a different brain level. So that's the struggle with friends. The other thing to struggle was my trigger is sleep deprivation. So you know how fucking hard it is that people would party all night, or it'd be like, yo, let's have a road trip to wherever. Let's go to this concert in Wisconsin from Illinois. And it's like, bro, I have to be in bed by 10 p.m. I mean, now, like I said, I haven't had a seizure in 10 years, so I'm kind of almost back to where I was before I started having seizures because the medicine has helped me so well. But for almost 20 years, I couldn't go anywhere where you had to be up past midnight. So what does that mean? If I go to concerts, I have to leave early. If I go to parties, I have to leave early. If I'm with a group of friends, I have to tell them, hey guys, I got to leave now, and be the bummer to everybody. It sucked. It's a fucking struggle. Now, the friend thing I would kind of say ties into, I want to mention this because I'm a stand-up comedian. That's a big part of my life right now. It kind of ties into stand-up comedy because it's like, yeah, I do drink, but I don't drink as much. So I'm kind of the awkward person at the hang. I'm still trying to fit in to the comedy scene, and I don't feel like I fit in. And I've had people tell me, yeah, man, it's because you got to stay for the hang. It's because you got to stay with people. And the truth is, epilepsy isn't math. It's comedy, meaning it isn't numbers. It's improvised. What do I mean by that? I can only tell in my mind if I'm feeling sleep deprived. So if I'm at a mic and I'm doing a mic and I'm like, yo, dude, I'm starting to feel that shakiness of like epilepsy, I got to leave. And it isn't consistent. One day I sometimes I stay after the mic to stay for the hang because everybody tells me, they're like, dude, yeah, you know what? You're not fitting in because we don't know who you are because you don't stay for the hang because I got fucking epilepsy, bro. Like, what do you want me to do, you know? So sometimes I hang, but sometimes I don't even go to the mic because my brain is like that. So it affects things like friends and comedy. Now, here's the part that I'm going to end this on. It's going to be a long part, but work. And here's what drives me nuts about my disability. It drives me so fucking nuts. So I just mentioned to you, my trigger is, over and over again, my trigger is sleep deprivation. What kind of fucking job could a person like me have? Knowing that. And, you know, I mentioned that, you know, I graduated college around 2009 when the stock market crashed. I was looking for an office job and I couldn't find one. So what ended up happening is like I said, I'm the fucking, I don't know what to call myself. I know it's cheesy to call myself the Rogan of the Chicago comedy, but I went gung-ho. I'm like, I got to do what I got to do to make money. So I went to a community college. I have a fucking security guard certificate. I have I almost got a CDL to be a trucker. I tested to be a real estate agent, but I didn't have a firm that I could work with. I did everything I could to try and get as many fucking open doors as far as certificates and training to get a job because my mom was driving me insane. She said, "Oh, you went to college and you are a fucking failure," you know? So I ended up going to Triton Community College where I got a welding certificate. And that's kind of since that happened when I was like 23, 24. And since then till now, till last year, I was a welder. And it paid me more than any office job ever did along the way. So I just stuck with welding. Now, here's what they don't tell you about welding. People think, oh, I just got to be a good welder to have that job. No. You know what you got to do? There is no welding shop that works like 40 hours a week. Every welding shop wants you to do overtime. That's number one. Number two, every welding shop starts at like 4 or 5 a.m. Like that, I mean, it starts at like, some start at 6, but I'm saying that's when you have to get up. So imagine with a disability like mine, where I have to have I should have the same sleep schedule as my wife or my kids so that I don't get woken up and have a seizure. But I'm being a welder. I chose this path. It was horrible. I can't tell you how many jobs I had to quit because they said, oh, you know what? When you applied, that was a contract. The application said, are you willing to do overtime? And I'm like, yeah, but I thought overtime meant like 2, maybe 1 hour extra a day. No. We want you to work 12 hours a day and come in on Saturdays and Sundays. That's what that means. So I would just have to quit. And that's why it took me so long to get in the welding union. And then I got in the welding union, and turns out they work 60, 80 hours a week because they work when the work is available and then they get laid off. So it ruined my disability, basically ruined my fucking career. And so now I'm at this point where I kind of took it easy and Ubered for a while, but even Uber was difficult because Uber you can't sustain. You know, it's irregular payments. And so I got to the point where I'm like, dude, you know, I had people tell me, friends, family, they're like, dude, you had 5 deaths in the family. You were fucking kidnapped. You were beat up by your parents. You had all this PTSD plus you're epileptic. Why don't you get disability? Well, I'm going to fight it and we'll see what happens. But the truth is, it sucks because on paper, it's like, how are you disabled? Well, because, you know, they literally told me, they're like, the epilepsy isn't going to win the case. Because on paper, you can still work. Sure, on paper. You know, it's kind of like when people talk shit about people who are like socialists. I don't give a fuck about politics, but it's like, you know, they go, oh yeah, socialism looks perfect on paper, but it's not, it isn't realistic. That's the thing with frontal lobe nocturnal epilepsy. Oh, sure. Yeah, I could work. But bro, if I have a seizure or if I have these side effects, like I said, imagine, I told you the side effects of even when I haven't had a seizure in 10 years, but there are days where maybe I stayed up a little bit too late. I mean, my brain is telling me, oh, I'm expecting you to take this pill, but I didn't take it in time because I wasn't home. And then the next day I go to work and I'm catatonic. I'm literally old dementia person in a psych ward movie staring at the fucking wall. And it's so stupid because I want to tell these jobs, I'm like, dude, do you want me to go to work catatonic? You're paying me hourly to do maybe a quarter of the production that I would normally do because I have epilepsy. It doesn't work. That's how this fucking health system is fucked in this country. And that's why I'm filing for disability. Because it's not sustainable. And that's the struggle that I had. All these places, they'd be like, oh, you're epileptic? Why do you have a driver's license? And here's the other thing, too, that people didn't realize. This is the fight that I got into at every single welding job, was that here's what would happen. I'd say, can you accommodate just for me that I work 40 hours a week? Well, it says you're overtime, blah, 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 so we're going to have to fire you. You're not competent for this job. And I go, okay, well, then I guess I'm going to have to get a lawyer or, you know, report you because this is a disability that I have. And of course, they would use that whole application was a contract bullshit. But here's the other thing. Oftentimes, there were shops where I was like, I'm so depressed. Like, it makes you want to kill yourself. It makes you think like I'm not useful because of this ailment. So what would I do? I ended up working the 60, 80 hours a week. And what would end up happening is I got to the point where I almost thought that I was going to have a seizure during the day. Because if you don't take, because basically what doctors have told me is, even though I have nocturnal epilepsy, if I didn't get treated with my medication, if I kept having the trigger of sleep deprivation, it might progress into having epilepsy all the time. So in this amazing American work culture, I was sacrificing my health to where if I had one seizure during the day, my driver's license is taken away, and suddenly I have general epilepsy. That's the fucking struggle that I went through. So, and yeah, like I said, it's every day. It's every day. So that's what happens. You're going to be fat. You're going to be not, the mood swings are there. Work is going to be a bit like here's the thing. Here's what's funny. Ever since I started Ubering, I actually looked up online, what is the average sleep schedule that is good for a healthy human? And we're not talking about tying in American work culture. I'm talking about if this was Greek and Roman times, we're just eating olives and having orgies. What is a healthy sleep schedule? They say a healthy sleep schedule is waking up around 9, 10 a.m. and then working, an 8-hour, 10-hour day. Sure. Maybe even 4 days a week. I'm willing to do 5 days a week. I'm willing to do even 4. If I could wake up at 10 a.m., work till 3 or 4, and do it 7 days a week, I would. But those jobs don't exist. And so I file for disability. Not to mention, like I said, this is the biggest thing I'll mention. This is the biggest struggle that I've had that I'm going to end this video on, is that as far as work goes, the mood swing part, like I said, I have 3 close friends, maybe another one in the comedy scene. So imagine how hard it is to manage your moods around friends. It's hard, but it's easier than work, because there will be friends who understand you and who will put up with you, because they're not putting up with you. They're being understanding of your ailment, right? You ain't going to get that at any fucking job in America. American jobs don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. I'm not going to get into that whole situation, but they don't care. You are expendable. And so, yeah, I'm filing for disability. I hope you wish me luck. And even filing for disability is a struggle, because I've had places tell me, they're like, well, first, literally, I had this people tell me this thing. And here's the thing. I'm not one of those people. I'm not going to get disability because I'm a mooch and I'm a freeloader. No, I look at how long I've worked 15 years welding, working 60-hour, 80-hour jobs. I'm a hard fucking worker. Why did I decide now disability? Because it caught up to me, man. I can't do that shit. I can't be treated like that, and my disability does not allow me. But as far as filing for disability, you know what they say is they go, so if number one, you have to be not working for 2 years to even get a case, because lawyers they present their hard sell. You know how grocery stores are buy one get one free, buy 3 get 100% off on the whatever. They have these pitches, right? All disability lawyers, what they pitch is they say, you won't have to pay for us unless we win, right? So nobody wanted it. I called 5 different lawyers until the 6th one said, I might have a case for you, because they're like, have you worked in the past 2 years? Yeah, I have. So you're able to work. And then I explained to them my particular situation. Yeah, they're like, yeah, you're in a tough situation, but no judge is going to give a fuck about that. So what I have to do is I have to hard sell the PTSD, which I was diagnosed with. And what's hilarious is I can't go in there and tell them I was kidnapped. I had 5 deaths in my family in 1 year. Me and my brother are the only ones left. I got beat up by my parents. I was on all these different all that shit does not matter. Even that with the epilepsy, I have to have it on paper because of the world that we live in today. So that's the struggle. That's the struggle. I guess wish me luck on this case. I hope, like I said, I hope. I already went through the struggle of looking for a job that has that schedule for me. Number one. Number two, if I can't find a job, which I don't think I can, wish me luck on this disability thing. I don't know what I could tell you. Anybody who enjoys this video, just please, if you want to help me out, subscribe, share it. I'd feel weird accepting money. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I wish all the love and care for any epileptics out there who don't have their story heard and who have a harder struggle than me, because I love my life right now. So yeah, thanks for getting wild. See you later.